Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about our awakening. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, have you awoken? I don't know. Let's think about that. So I have Amy here. I brought her back because I had such a good time the first time when I brought her on my show that we are thinking about our awakening. So, Amy, thank you so much for coming on my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. Let's go ahead and dive right in. When you hear the words awakening, what does that make you think about?
Yeah, it's good to be here, Mitzi. Thanks for having me back. It's such a we have so many meanings attached to words. And I think it's like really clarifying what that means for us because we're all on different paths, and so our journeys look differently. But I think it's about seeing ourselves differently, not necessarily the world. So really going inward and kind of sifting through all that noise of our conditioning, our fear, our distraction, all of the constructs, all the BS, those belief systems that we have ingrained in us, and really reconnecting to us and questioning everything, really, and not in a scary way, but in a playful, kind of curious, inquisitive sort of way. So it's really an intimate ongoing dialogue with your soul to me. And
Yeah.
it's a journey. It's not a destination like everything else that's kind of worthy of our time in this life.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you say it's a journey, not a destination, because when people think of a destination, they think, oh, it's point A to point B, and if I get
Yeah.
there, then I could come back, or vice versa. You know what I mean? It's just once I get
Yeah.
there, everything will be right, and I'll be okay, and then my life would be
I'll
done with
finally
this
be
stuff.
happy.
I'll finally have the peace that I need. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. And I also love
Exactly.
how how you stated it, how it's not necessarily about questioning the world, it's questioning everything inside of you. It's like you have to
Yeah.
really dig deep in your heart. You have to figure out what lies in your heart, where are your beliefs in your heart, where do you really stand, what was given to you, and what is
Hmm.
really something that you believe is true to be true. You know what I mean? And I think
Absolutely.
that is something that we all really need to think about because it's like our belief systems really do direct where we go, how we perceive the
Absolutely.
world, how we perceive other people, how we interact with other people, the assumptions we put on other people, the
Hmm.
scenarios. So it's like when you say it's inquisitive, it's like playing with that what if. You know what I mean? And that's
Hmm.
what I've always
Yeah, I love
done
that.
in a young age is that what if something like this just happened, just tweak it a little bit. And then when you play with that thought, oh my goodness, the possibilities, you know what I mean? The
Hmm.
signs, the answers that you receive by the questions that you ask will be given to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have received my answers that I have questioned in such a way that I'm at peace. And it's not like, oh,
Mm.
it's a scary thing. It's like, oh, it brings me peace even though I'm a disconnected with certain people now and I no longer have connections or relations with certain people, I'm okay because now I know where my belief stands. I'm okay
Hmm.
because I know where my moral stands. And I think that is something that
Absolutely.
is good to have. So I guess to ask you is like when you were going through this awakening, what was something of a struggle that you had to overcome?
That's a good question. I can think of many. And I think you know, I think oftentimes we often go back to our childhood and how formative that was and challenging that was. And so for me, having a very deep belief that girls can do anything was frequently challenged. And in my particular case, it was playing baseball and other sports. And I know that sounds very trivial, but it wasn't because I was not being recognized for a person. I was being recognized just in this box of being a girl.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me. And I've been a pioneer on many levels, sports included. Um, and it's a lonely place. And so
Yes.
from that loneliness is that turning inwards of really, as you say, like finding out who you are. And it's this constant dialogue and conversation. And for me also to know and be really humbled by that this may change. there might be new information or new inspiration that comes to me. It's like that challenge what I may believe right now. And I think that actually opens up even more possibilities and potentials, because I'm not dogmatic about anything. Yes, I have my value system for sure. And you mentioned morals, and there's certainly, there's those are a little more solid than some of the other things, in extreme cases, of course. But for me, it's that constant and in not questioning in like a cynical, it's like, well, why the hell do you believe that kind of thing? But
Mhm.
really bringing that sense of openness of, well, how did you arrive here, Amy? And what does that look like for you now in this phase of your life? Does it really feel aligned with your whole being, your spiritual, your physical, your mental, your emotional, whatever that is, and like really checking in with my own soul. Yeah, and I think science, I think religion, I think pretty much politics, any topic that you want to bring up, I think it's good to question. I think it's good to examine and to, really think about, well, that didn't hold true then. I mean, Isaac Newton got, vilified, and he had to retract his statement. But lo and behold, how many hundreds of years later he got pardoned? He's like, oh yeah, he was right. And so, how often
Exactly.
do we do that personally, as a group, as a government, as a world, as a culture, as a nation of different countries? And so, I would just invite everyone to just really examine what that root belief system is and where it's coming from. That
Absolutely.
does it
I love
include
that.
kindness? Does it include loving our neighbor? Does it include compassion? Does
Mhm.
it include unconditional love, as hard as that may be? Like, I can have compassion for, the worst human on earth, but that doesn't mean I'm going to abide by those actions and, put my flag in the ground against some of the atrocities.
Exactly. I think that's a valid point that we also need to remember. Like it's okay to question because
Yeah.
I mean, come on. If we really want to think about it, let's be honest. You talked about science, you talked about religion, you talked about politics.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. How many times have each of three of those subjects have been proven to be wrong in
That's
one
right.
point or another? You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
How many times have somebody had to come up and be like, you know what? The past
Yeah.
was not how it was and this is how we need to move forward because there were
Yeah.
something missing. And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of thing that people don't realize, that we hold on to what we call tradition, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
quote unquote tradition, but in reality, they're just rules that somebody made because it helped them survive at a certain time in their life. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's like we can't live on somebody else's survival tactics that was back in the 1800s. Now we're in the 21st century and we're still
Yeah.
going off of the 18th century version.
That's
And like
right.
that's what pisses me off with psychology. Like I love psychology. Oh my goodness, I love psychology. I always wanted to be a psychologist. And I love talking to psychologists on my show. But one of the things that pisses me off about psychology is that they have yet to evolve and they
Hmm.
still hold on to certain beliefs that were given from time at a time where the mental
Yeah.
institute was basically another form of prison and torture. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Where the asylum was no help, and you can still see the negative effects of that today. You know what I mean? And even then, in science, I still remember they scientists used to say that like Indians and Hispanics and blacks were all
Yeah.
the lowest of the low, scientifically proven. You know what I mean? Scientifically proven,
Exactly.
they're the lowest of the low, but that's not true. And we have proven it time and time
Yes.
and time again. Sex does not identify anything. Race does not identify anything. Religion does not identify anything. Politics does not identify anything. You know what identifies it? Love, or our hearts. Our hearts,
Mhm.
what lies in our hearts. And I think that is something that truly something people need to start examining. You know what I mean? Because when we start to
Absolutely.
connect with our hearts, then we start to realize what's going on in our minds, why we are
Hmm.
thinking the way that we are thinking, why we are operating the way that we are operating. Because when we
Hmm.
realize that we are operating on a survival system that's not in our survival mode that we need to be in anymore, that has a ripple effect on our bodies and our lives, in our relationships, in our everything that we do. And
Absolutely.
I think once we start questioning realizing, researching, and finding out what really matters within ourselves, then yeah, we can start putting up those boundaries. We can start putting up ourselves in predicaments that will prove people wrong, that will
Yeah.
prove these things wrong. But just having that open mind, and just having that
Hmm.
open mind is just the best part. So I guess my question to you is, how how did you know that you needed to start this awakening process for yourself?
I think it really came from that place of feeling isolated and alone, and so it's either self-destruct or self-evolve.
Oh
And there was
yeah,
some self-destruction in there. I mean, I think we all have that
yeah,
tendency at some point in our life for sure.
absolutely.
But I was fortunate to be in a place where at least within the women of my family were very open because they have had different kind of psychic abilities, and that you couldn't really dismiss because they were
Yeah.
right times, and
I know what
like
you
with
mean
all
by
this stuff.
that.
And so, I think that really ignited that curiosity in me. And so that coupled with feeling that isolation and that loneliness, fueled me to want to seek something else that wasn't like, I just felt like there had to be more. There had to be
Yeah,
more.
there
There
is.
has to be more for me
Yeah.
to keep going on, kind of thing. Um, and there was, and there still is, of course. We're on this beautiful journey, and I think we need to really, as you say, go within ourselves to decide how we want to define that. Um, and coming to this place of questioning and letting go of the need to be right. I think that
Mm,
keeps a lot of folks in that place that just doesn't serve them in the end. So you alluded to this as like how it affects us emotionally, physically. It's going to come back within us because of that. It's kind of a cancer, really, and we can
mm,
choose it or let it metastasize regardless. Um, Rumi has a quote that I'm paraphrasing, but beyond the field of beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And I love that. So that's transcending. If we have very different belief systems, that's okay. We can go to this other space and see each other from that soul space and that heart space. It's like, you're a human being. I'm a human being. We're having this experience. How about we kind of unite within us from this space and tackle these problems from that instead of the hatred, and instead of the division, instead of that need to be right?
yeah,
That's a big one. Is that we
absolutely.
ego loves to drive.
Goodness, girl, you said it, because ego is
It
is a very hard one to break when it comes to
is.
individuals, because I see it all the time. I mean, we see it all the time. We see it in movies, we see it in social
Yeah.
media, we see it in songs, we see it in every day where it plays out in just in our local community.
Yeah.
Ego most definitely can hinder you from awakening, because it prevents you from learning anything, because it tells you that arrogantly you are right and what you know is right, and you don't need to know anything else
Yeah.
because you
Because
already know
change is too
everything.
uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it retreats you into this box, and where makes you complacent, makes you compliant, makes you just numb to the world because you think you know it all. And then you're angry because you know deep down inside that there's something more, but you are
Hmm.
repressing it. No, wake up. Oh my goodness, open your eyes. It's like,
Yeah.
I tell my husband all the time when I'm asking him to look for something. I'm like, look with your eyes open, not with your hands closed. You know what I mean? Because he's always like his eyes are always closed when I'm telling him to look at something, because it's like he's not seeing it in a way that he should be seeing it, or another possibility to see it, because there's so many ways to see things in this world, but the fact that we only see it from one perspective,
Absolutely.
removes the 360 that's all around us, that 180, whatever that's around us. We're not
Hmm.
in rotation, we're not seeing it from other people's point of view. And it's funny because if we want to think outside the box, and we think of like these sci-fi movies and these aliens, and they're always like, ah, we want to destroy the human race because they're so destructive and they're so mean and they destroy and they destroy themselves. And it's like we do that. We destroy ourselves. And if we want proof,
Absolutely.
look at the war. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Look at the news. Look at all
And
these
pick one,
places that
yeah.
have been, yeah, exactly. Just spot. You know what I mean? Pretty sure
Yeah.
there's a spin the globe, land your finger, and I'm pretty sure
Pretty
you're gonna
much.
find some destruction there in that
Yep.
place. And it's like people don't realize, like, if we turn it around and stop seeing people and how we can divide ourselves and stop
Hmm.
projecting out our hate and our anger and our frustration out on other people, then we will allow ourselves to really evolve in another way. And some I had somebody tell me, sometimes what we project out on other people, in reality, it's what we don't like within ourselves. And
Absolutely.
that's our biggest point where we can have that moment of clarity. We're like, I don't like Joe, but Joe does this, Joe does that, Joe does this. However, how am I like Joe? And people don't do
Hmm.
that. People don't have that
Hmm.
moment of to reflect. And I wish more people had that moment to reflect. So I guess my question is you is how important is that time for reflection?
Oh, it's super important. I mean, it's transformative. Um, and find what works. I would suggest to, you and your listeners, whomever, find what works for you. I mean, sitting in meditation, to me, whatever that looks like for you, and I know there's a lot of attachment to that word, but redefine it. But sitting in quietude, whatever that quietude, without the distractions, without the noise, and if you can do that in nature, that's like bonus points. That's like up leveling even more. But and having that sense of just stillness and that quiet and just noticing, and trying to withhold that this monkey mind that just constantly chatters. And then that's okay. It's like, okay, I hear you. That's a good thought, but I'm going to return here now.
Mhm.
And I'm going to listen to the birds and I'm going to talk to the trees and I'm going to be
Yeah.
still and see what voices are coming, what wisdom. We have everything we need inside of us. It's like we have everything that we need to know and desire. And if we can get quiet enough, those answers come. And it's quite remarkable. And so it's
Yes.
like building this muscle of and it's always, progress, not perfection. I think particularly in our culture, we get so hung up on I don't know. It's like going full ass on, and I have to be like the biggest guru that's ever guru kind of thing. And you see that in every
Yeah.
single thing,
Yeah.
whatever topic you're talking about. And it's like, no, it's like just be.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be all that. We don't have to be levitating on a cushion above a mountain. Just be still and be quiet and notice. And
Yes.
nature provides everything for us.
Exactly. And it's just being in the moment, being in the now.
Yeah,
I was watching this video about this monk, and he was just basically explaining how sometimes we cannot be in the now because we allow the voices, the words, the anxiety, the worry to
yeah,
continue to playing in our mind, worrying about the past that has no effect real now, no real point. It's already done. Worrying about the future that has no real effect either because what affects the future effect is right now. So if we keep on forgetting to live in the now, then we
hmm,
will never get to the future. You know what I mean? We if we, and that's what I loved when you said just get into nature and just listen and just be in the moment because sometimes just being in the moment truly just allows you to reflect and allows you to have curious
hmm,
moments. Just be curious. Allow the curiosity to roam through you. Allow it to
hmm.
go through you the same way you allow air to go through your body and
That's
allow
right.
rain to go through off your body or water when you take a shower. You allow it to pass through you. How come we cannot allow those thoughts to do the same? How come we
It's a
can
good
allow
question.
those words to do the same thing? Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have that understanding. We don't have that permission because nobody had
Hmm.
told us that that was permissible. And
Yeah.
now, and now, Amy, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So that when you were like, awakening's my topic, I was like, yes, I'm with you because this is something that we really need to think about and really talk about because it's like people don't, are not as awake as they think they are. You know,
Yeah.
they think they're, because I think they're aware, but being aware of something is not the same as being awake in the
Hmm.
moment, you know? And I think that's something that we all need to think about. So I guess that
Yeah.
leads me to my next question. For you, I mean, what's the difference in your
Between
mind?
awake and aware. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a sense of deepening.
Mm-hmm.
So if you deepen that awareness, then you will come to an awakening.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, it doesn't have to be this big, huge thing, and it's ongoing, and you can apply that to anything in your life. It's like just changing your awareness surrounding uh, how you eat and what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
so then perhaps at one point you will come to a point of awakening of how our food systems are really set up. And
Mm-hmm.
so it takes you to a different level. I mean, when thinking about this topic, I think most people think of, oh, we have like this divine lightning bolt of inspiration, and it's like, oh, I'm awakened now. It's like, well, great. I'm glad you had that moment, but it still continues. We still have a life to live and moments to enjoy and people to interact with. It's an
Yeah.
ongoing journey, and it's this constant evolution and that openness to self. And I would, really invite people to just sit in that space and then question and allow themselves to be and say and feel whatever it is they are. And if you shut down, if you have such a big resistance to something, then question that why? Why am I resisting this? And back to what you said earlier, it's usually something that we don't want to see within ourselves, which is
Exactly.
also why a lot of people don't want to sit with themselves in quiet because they're not comfortable in their own skin, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
But we've been kind of that intentionally divided and separated from ourselves. And the
Yeah.
more we're divided within ourselves, the more divided we're going to see out here. And
Yes.
so but I do feel like a lot of things are shifting. And, one of the things I love to point to is the telepathy tapes, and, how that podcast has become so popular, which is a surprise to a lot of people. But for me, it's very heartening. It gives me a lot of hope because it's talking about subject matters. And if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend everyone listening to it because it starts here, but then you take off. So like about episodes 6 to 10, that's where you're really starting about what we're talking about now. This evolution of self, of consciousness, of experiencing different things and creating different models that would make the old models that don't work for everyone obsolete. And there's a Buckminster Fuller quote in there, or something around that. But that's, instead of putting our energy into the fight, let's put our energy into the build. Let's create what we want to see. And eventually the old will fall away because it becomes obsolete. Once
Yes.
we awaken all these different levels, we see that, Mitzi, you're my soul sister, and I'm gonna love you unconditionally no matter what you say to me. That's hard. It's what we're talking about is simple, not easy. And let's try to build something different that we want to raise our children in, and just live in a sense of unity. And that's not being Pollyanna about it. That's a lot of people come back and say, well, that's just unrealistic. And I'm like, well,
Mm.
if you look at the history of the world, everything that we've done up to now really hasn't worked. We are more divided and cruel and, you know, uncompassionate as
We
ever.
could
Yeah.
barely accept ourselves,
That's
and
right.
when we go out into the world, we cannot accept them for who they are, so we are
Yeah.
divided. So to say
So
that
let's
is
try something
absolutely right.
different.
Exactly. So let's try
Yeah.
something different. And I think when you are allow yourself to awaken, you allow yourself to accept yourself for all that you are. so that
Yeah.
when you go out into the world, I'm able to accept you, Amy, for all that you are, for all the goodness, all the bad, everything in the between, the
Uh,
toxic, the beauty, the
yep.
ugly, everything. You know what I mean? Everything. I can
Hmm.
love you for all that you are. Why? Because I accepted myself for all that I am. And I know that's
Hmm.
part of who I
That's
am. I know
beautiful.
I have toxic traits. I know I have bad traits, but I also know that I have to stand by what's right. And I think another thing to talk on what you said earlier is that sometimes we feel stuck, that we can't really be all that we are. And I think it comes down to we try to tiptoe around the people around us, and that
Mhm.
affects us. And that's one thing
Yeah.
I had to tell my mom, because my mom was like, Mitzi, you're so brutally honest nowadays that it makes me hard to even want to be around you. And I'm like, listen, I have to be honest, because if I'm not honest, it hurts me. So if
Hmm.
I'm not honest with you, with myself, with my children, with anybody, then that means
Yeah.
I'm dishonest with myself. And that's only stabbing me in my heart. And I can't do that.
Hmm.
So if it hurts you that I am being brutally honest with you, then that means it's time for you to reflect on that and figure out why it hurts you. What are you avoiding that you don't want to confront, that's causing you to feel offended or causing you to feel some type of hurt or pain, instead of feeling revitalized, instead of feeling
Yeah.
acknowledged, instead of feeling accepted, instead of feeling all of the things that I'm really trying to do, but you're interpreting it in a different manner because you are still wounded and you won't allow yourself
That's
to
right.
realize that you're wounded. And because of that, it's causing you to react in a way that was never the intention. And that's when
Yeah.
arguments happen, that's when misinterpretations happen, because one person is not healed while the other person is healed. So us being healed, one thing I realized is that we can be honest, but when we're honest, do it with love. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Do it with love, because when you do it with love, it changes people. Oh my goodness, how many
Hmm.
times I've literally, in the 4 years that me and my husband has been together, he has changed from the egotistical machismo, I'm a man, type of man, to such a caring,
Oh.
loving, like he's such a different person. And sometimes when I say certain things to him, I could see that it heals him, because
Oh.
it makes him like, oh, I didn't know this was okay. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Hmm.
when we realize like our words have power, our intentions have
Absolutely.
power. And when we acknowledge that, our heart, oh my God, our heart has a big deal with how we
Hmm.
move through life. And it's like, I tell people, it's like, it's not about sex, it's not about race, it's not about religion,
Yep.
it's not about anything with me anymore. I check people's hearts.
Yeah.
If people are living in the right place in their heart, then you know what? I'm good with you, honey. But if you're not
Hmm.
living in the right place in your
Totally.
heart, then I'm gonna talk to you about it, or I'm gonna keep you away from me because
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm where I'm at, you know? So
Yep.
that's a whole nother spiel. So it's unfortunate that time is catching up to us, because I feel like we could continue on talking
Hours.
about this, yeah, for hours on end. Amy, I'm gonna have to figure out another excuse to bring you back on next year.
No, yeah, no excuse needed. I love being here and chatting with you,
Uh,
Mitzi. Thank you so much.
awesome. So I guess to start wrapping up the show, what could be some words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many. I think just really to allow yourself that gentleness and that self-compassion when you do kind of drum up the courage to sit in silence with yourself and to really deeply listen and know that it's okay, that you are beautiful and perfect and an amazing human being just as you are. And open your heart, open your space, open your mind, and better things of you, of your self-involvement will you will simply be. And all those
Exactly.
illusions that we have of each other, ourselves, they start to dissipate.
Exactly.
And progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And preparation, not procrastination, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like that, because when we think about it, that illusion, when we start walking towards it, we realize it's a mirage and it's not
Yeah.
really there. So it's like we start, because it's fear. The illusion is fear. The
That's right.
illusion is not is that, oh, you're
Bingo.
never going to be successful. You're never going to make it. You're never going to do this. Never, 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 never. Fill in the blank at the end of whatever goals that
Like,
you have. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, we can do this. We can
yeah,
come back. We can
we
have
do.
that grounding
And you don't have to
moment.
do it alone.
Mm,
Tap into your community, come visit us, whatever it is.
exactly.
Like you don't have to be alone because we're not meant to do it alone.
We're not. We're really not. This life
Mm-mm.
is for all of us. It's not for
Yeah,
one person.
that's right.
It's for all of us. And I think that's the reason why we do what we do is to let people know that they're not alone. You know what I mean? To
No,
let people know
exactly.
that this life that we're living in is meant, like you said, to be lived together. So why not live it, right? Why not?
Yeah,
So that's a beautiful thing. Oh my goodness, Amy,
I
air
know.
hug.
I know. Thank you so much, Mitzi. It's so good to see you again.
Likewise. So, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, please, if you guys want to check out Amy and all the goodness that she has to offer the world, why wouldn't you? Right? Why wouldn't you with this great conversation? Please go check her out. I have her website on mine along with this link to if you're listening on podcasts or if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link right there that has access to her website because I want every possible way for you to get access to these guests because you have the right to continue on thinking with these great individuals that I come across and allow me to think with them. So, with that being said, always, 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 always keep thinking, y'all.